So what that means is, again, the way I imagine it, teachers were born with this predisposition towards languages. We, those who have a knack for foreign languages, just somehow do the analysis well. We dissect, we organize, we rationalize the language, we intuitively understand where it is a noun, where it is a verb, why they say a thing this way and not the way that we are used to saying it in our mother tongue, so we just basically accept it. Maybe it has something to do with open-mindedness in general, like how ready you are to accept a new fact, new knowledge, a new point of view. So maybe it has something to do with some innate tolerance levels in all possible meanings of the word tolerance. But what we have is a social group of people who learned a language successfully, but do not actually realize why it was successful. So they think that they did it because of like a set of factors, but they are wrong. Like maybe they were doing a completely different sequence of actions, but say they went to a pedagogical university later, just linguistic university, and they were told some more official about some more official approaches, how education must be done, what to expect from a person, and so on and so forth. And they adopt this system and they try to impose it on their students, and they fail because where they started, the square one for a teacher, for a person with linguistic tendencies, is very different and often much higher than for a person who just begins to get acquainted with this world of English or world of some different language. And why I think so is, well, I always feel quite insecure about such things because I always, I'm afraid maybe I'm imagining something. Maybe it's not what other teachers have in their practice. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong. But what I have seen is when I try to put forward my kind of legacy expectations, like the way an educational program expects people to perform, I fail as a teacher. So people aren't able to catch up with expectations, and their real needs are very different from what the program thinks. And there are, well, dozens of examples. Maybe I can mention a couple. So the first one is present continuous is normally taught right after present simple. And often when I have a beginner student, like beginner who actually has had very little exposure to English or never truly was interested. So again, it could be a person who spent 10 years, no less, with language, but still couldn't care less, and you ask what is present continuous, and the person isn't able to answer. While you can imagine a school program, I mean, or a student's book expects people to answer this question after, well, what, 10 lessons or maybe 20 lessons, so it doesn't happen. And so present continuous is a phenomenon that is very inherent in English, but say in Russian it's absent. We don't have present continuous in Russian. And so to explain what it is, I need a person to already switch to some kind of flexibility and language perception mode where he or she is tuned with English, where they have spent some time with reading or socializing or practicing. And that means that usually it's not month 2 or 3 or 4 of education, usually it's later. And I'm talking about adults. So what I normally do, I start teaching them past simple, past forms of verbs, because my interest is to give them reading as soon as possible so that they can have a lot of exposure, because from there they will get some other questions. For example, present continuous, they'll be meeting those ing forms and they'll get interested, like, what am I actually seeing? What is that? Another example is the construction, I want you to do something. Again, in Russian, we don't say that, we say a completely different thing. And this construction, I want you to do something, is very natural. I myself, I think, learned it or understood it many, many years ago. Maybe I was a teenager in my 6th or 7th grade at school. And I was like, okay, so that's how English people say that. I'm going to just mimic and repeat and do the same. My adult students have been listening to me, some of them for years, and obviously they have been listening to other sources of English, they have been reading, and a lot of them don't use this construction because it's not what they're used to in Russian. In Russian, it's a different, again, it's a different expression. It's built in a different order, and they stick to this order until, and they have been doing that, had been doing it until recently. I was like, oh, wait a second, why are you doing that? So it was of course my error, and I've been in the industry for many years, and to my horror, I realized again I had been doing that all wrong. I missed that point, and to be honest, maybe my memory fails me, but I don't remember a single student's book that teaches I want you to do something as a construction. So, and there are, as I said, there are so many more examples of such, like, discrepancies between the expectations of or needs, necessities of a learner and the actual program that has its own logic and the tradition in the educational system. So I don't have answers here. I'm just saying that in my experience and in my world, there is something terribly wrong about how we approach the culture of educating people, and I'm trying to amend at least the way I'm approaching education.